So, this first video will be about how to assemble the head. So this is this thing here. Now what you want to do is you just want to generally follow the wiring diagram in the README file, and also flash this controller with the QMK firmware as well. So once you do that, I'll just quickly mention what is going on here. So we have 6 LEDs, but you will see that on some of them the wire lengths are different. So for this, there will actually be 2 sets of wire lengths. The longer one is around 80, and the shorter one is around 50 millimeters. So from the controller, so you want actually the longer one first, then you want the longer one again, then you want the shorter one, then you want the longer one, the shorter one, and then the longer one again. So this is because if you look at this thing here, we have 2 sets of LEDs that are, close to each other. So we need like 3 short connections, then the rest are longer. Oh yeah, I should probably mention how you actually make these LEDs. So you'd want a strip that looks like this, right? And then you just cut each individual LED out. Here's an example. Now this is a bad cut because you need to be able to secure 3 wires on each side to, connect the chain. Now I have cut a little bit too close to the LED here, which means I can't connect another wire here in the middle. So this LED unfortunately is no good anymore. But if you buy a whole roll, you will have plenty of chances to get 6 of them working. So we'll start off with getting the the bearings here inside this thing. So they can be a little bit tricky to put in depending on your printer. Sometimes you might need to cut a little bit around here if your printer isn't, super good. Like my one, I had to cut it for this one. And these are actually removable. So to remove them, you can see that there are tiny holes here. You can see probably better on this one. So the hole goes all the way through. You can see the light coming in here. So this is actually how you get them out. So you can get like a SIM card tool and put it in here. And normally they are, very flush, so you won't really be able to do it by hand. If you get a hammer, right, and then something to support yourself. So this is just an old print that I did, an old kind of a test print or whatever. So if you can, secure it in here somehow like this, and then with the hammer, just kind of like bash it. And then you'll see that it'll, come out like that. So I'll just do this for the rest of them. So this way, if you want to change this later on or something, you can just like remove them. You don't need to, melt this off or something insane. So yeah, it's like, extremely fixable. Or if somehow this breaks, you can just replace it fairly easily. So yeah, once you have hammered them out, what you can do is you can try and test fit them in here. Now you won't really be able to get them in with your hand. So as you can see, this one, it doesn't really go in, which means I'll need to do a little bit of a cut around the area. And let's try the next one. Yeah, so it looks like none of them really go in as well. So in this case, what you want to do is you want to get yourself a knife like this. Then you want to kind of like drag the knife around the edge, kind of like so. So there are two edges here. There is this one and then the kind of deeper one. So when this goes in, this needs to go all the way into the deeper edge here. But usually once it actually goes in, it will go into the deep edge, so that's fine. So I'm just gonna kind of trim this around off camera. Okay, so I trimmed it off a bit more. As you can see, I'm able to push it in slightly. So you don't want to push it in all the way just yet, but you should be able to just push it in slightly so it doesn't like fall out. Then just try and do this for all three. Okay, so yeah, I'm able to do this for all three, so that's good. Now, next, what you want to do is get one of these tools here, and you want to position it like this, so that it's, you know, pushing on both sides. And then what you want to do is you want to kind of press this on your chest, and then start pushing. So I need to cut more of them out because you can see this wasn't pushed in the whole proper way. So I'll see if I can get one of them pushed in the proper way. Okay, so after another round of peeling, I managed to get them in. So it's important for them to go in the whole way because it's like, you know, very specific for the ball. And the main reason is, if you look at how far the ball is from this piece here, if I were to just use this, kind of mark it with my nail, the ball is actually sitting this distance away, and that distance is 3 millimeters. So if you don't get them in all the way, the ball will be a little bit higher than 3 millimeters. And all the way is, if you take the measurement here from the edge, like so, it's around 4 millimeters. So make sure you kind of bash it in. So if you're kind of struggling to get them in, you can also use the hammer in reverse. Like, instead of just taking them out, you can also put them in. So what you do is you place it inside something, then you move the teeth of this thing like around, so it's like, you know, around the ball. Then you take the hammer and then, you know, you hit the edges here until it goes in nicely. So you can 3D print yourself a nice like cylinder or whatever to hold it, or just use anything else, use like a cup or something. So yeah, anyway, once this is in place, what I should have actually mentioned, the last step is make sure you test that this thing works. So take out any laptop here, it'll just act as a mouse, so that's fine. So once you have somewhere where the laptop is, just plug it in. You should see all of the 6 LEDs light up. So yeah, that's one check anyway. And then to check if the sensor is working, all you can do is just hover the ball over the sensor and you should see the mouse moving here. So that's how you know when it's working. So once you have verified that, we can proceed with the next step. Now, next step is, you know, connecting this thing actually onto here. Now you have two options here. You can either connect it via friction mount only, or you can print this bar here. So this bar, it goes over the sensor at the back here, as you can see, and it just holds it in if the friction mount is not good enough. Now I found the friction mount to be more than good enough, but for some reason for you, if it doesn't work, what you need to do is you need to actually put in some hot melt inserts inside these holes here. So you do that by just you know, putting them in and then using a heating or a soldering iron, then kind of like push them in while the soldering iron is hot. And then you can use an M3 or M2 thread. I forgot what it was, but I'll you know, link it in the README file. I suppose I should show you a little bit more of how this is set up in case you want to use it. So all these are just, you know, normal screws, and then this is just a bracket here. And if I were to pop out this thing, you can see that there is hot melt insert here and hot melt insert here. So you want to make sure that this hot melt insert is a little bit lower than this thing here, and then the second one needs to be a little bit lower than this piece here. So that way, when this sits in, the hot melt insert's actually on top of here, you know. So when you secure it, like so, it looks like that. And then you just add these in this way, like that. And then just screw it down as tight as it goes. Now, the reason why I did this at the start was because the tolerances were a little bit, you know, not tight enough, and so it was actually required at the start of this project. But when I got the tolerances down, the friction fit I think is more than good enough, so you don't really need it. But yeah, I suppose, you know, if you're going to be doing this permanently and never actually going to, you know, mess around with it, repair it or whatnot, then I suppose this would help. Because otherwise this thing could, you know, yeah, I don't actually know how it would happen, but I guess if you pressed on this sensor, it actually could fall out. But yeah, I mean, better safe than sorry, you know. But if you want to keep the budget down, you don't really need it, to be honest. I'm not going to be using it. And I have been using like a different version of this mouse, you know, with the less fancy cover or whatever. And it was fine, you know. And anyway, if it does fall out, it's very easy to take this whole thing apart, because these are secured by magnets, and you just, you know, pull it out, push it back in, put it back, and then that's it. So, but anyway, either way, if you want to do that, you should put in the hot melt inserts now. If you don't, next step is just putting it in. Now, you want to orientate this so that you see these bits here, they align with the long bits, and then these 4 bits, they align with the short bits here. So once you have aligned that, just kind of, you know, put it in. And then it is a tight fit because it is a friction fit, so you'd want to kind of push it in. Make sure that's like sitting flush, you know. And yeah, so now once it's sitting flush, next step, oh yeah, actually you could start off like this, right? Because we need one of these long pieces to be present here. So if we were to put this one in, now most of these are going to be friction fit, but we will be using a bit of hot glue to secure them. But first of all, you just want to make sure that they all fit in. So just keep going around the circle, like so. Make sure that, you know, the LEDs are facing all right. So depending on how much hot glue you used, you might need to, you know, push them in further. And then just keep going around the circle until you're done. So I'm just going to pause the video here. So yeah, the last one will be a little bit flimsy because it only has, you know, the hot glue on one side kind of holding it, but the rest should be friction fit. So yeah, it should look like this. Now, because during the process you might have ripped a cable, so it's good to test it and make sure that all of the LEDs are shining. And at this point you can actually start to see the effect that all the LEDs have on the ball, which is pretty cool. And yeah, also I suppose at this point check if the mouse cursor is moving nicely, and I can see that it is. So I just have, you know, this random cheap ass hot glue gun, which I'm gonna use. Now this will make it so that it's a little bit more difficult to repair this thing, but I think it's okay. You should be able to tear out the hot glue parts. So yeah, I'm just gonna secure these while the hot glue melts off camera. Yeah, anyway, the hot glue gun is melted now, so I will start, you know, securing these more permanently. And while you're hot gluing them in, also periodically check if all the LEDs are still working. Now what happened to me is one of the wires kind of got loose here, so all of them have stopped working now. So I'm just gonna solder this back in, and it's easier, you know, to do it one by one to make sure that they're all good, rather than, you know, do it at the end and then find out that something's wrong and now you need to remove all the hot glue again. So yeah. Okay, so I have hot glued them in. Now I went a little bit overkill on some of them. It's just kind of how the hot glue came out. But anyway, when you're hot gluing them, you should try and get them, you know, aligned as much as possible so that the whole LED is, you know, shining or pointing out. And so yeah. Anyway, once that's done, you should once again test it. So plug it in, make sure all the LEDs are working, and also make sure the mouse is still working. Now the next part is, so here we would want to sort of move any cables that are in the way. So like, for example, none of the cables should be, and also none of the hot glue should be on this ring, because so for example, this is the basic kind of body. If we were to put this in, this would need to go under, if you know what I mean. So make sure there's nothing there. Now all my small cables apart from this one are actually pretty good. So for this one, I'm just gonna, you know, move them slightly up, and I'm gonna put like a tiny bit of hot glue on here just to hold them in place. So yeah, now that this is fairly secure here, so it's not interfering with the edge, we can go ahead and so over here is where the magnets go in, and then this would go in on top, right? So we kind of want to move these as far away here as possible from the magnets. So here, for example, this is a good spot, so I'm literally just going to put in the hot glue dump over here. So yeah, that looks pretty good. Next one is a little bit, it's not in a great spot. So in here, I'm just gonna, you know, put a little bit of hot glue here so that just keeps in this position. Okay, so there we go. So now I won't be moving around. And now this one is actually not too bad, but I will put in a tiny bit of hot glue just right here, just in case. Okay, so yeah, this looks good now. Now everything's, you know, nice and secure. So now next step is the magnets. So we can actually turn off the hot glue gun. Now for the magnets, it's just using, you know, these tiny thin magnets, and to secure them you can just use a tiny drop of any super glue. Now how I created this is, if we look on this older one, or well, this model is actually the same as this model, just printed in a different material. So as you can see here, the magnets, they just pop in like this, and they're actually removable. So if you want to take them out, all you need to do is just need to get a knife. Well, okay, that was a bad example, but anyway, when they're stuck in, you'll see that there is like a small hole here, right? So if you flick up the magnet, it will actually come out. So yeah, it's here as well. So yeah, you can just flick it up and then it will be grand. So that way you can reuse the magnets then. And so when you're putting them down, you probably might want to do this at the same time as you're putting in the magnets for the body. But I don't have the final version of the body printed yet, so we'll just use this as an example here. So you want to put them in a stack like this, right? And you want to keep them in the same orientation, right? So put in these magnets like so, in the same orientation, and then you want to flip these around like so, 180 degrees, and then put that orientation into the body. So this way, if you bring those two together, because you know the orientation is flipped, they will actually connect. So that's kind of the easiest way to handle that. So yeah. And then for the glue drop itself, for the super glue, you just want the tiniest of drops that you can, because you don't really need you know, a lot of strength to hold it in. And if you put too much glue, it might actually float out of position, and then it won't be, you know, flush with the body then. So in my case, just have the magnets here prepared, and just do one side at a time. Now they will dry fairly quickly, so it's not really going to be a problem. But anyway, what I like to do is I like to spread the magnets out, you know, in the same orientation, so that way it's I won't get, you know, confused later on. So yeah, that might actually have been a bit too much super glue, so I'll need to press this down. So, and it will set within like seconds, so you don't need to worry about anything there. Make sure that there's no kind of like hot glue in the thing. Oh yeah, so another interesting aspect of this, these will actually sort of self-align, and that is because right under the magnets, the rollers or whatever, and because they're metal, the magnet will actually kind of stick down, and it'll help you, you know, with the super glue. So yeah, that was kind of accidental design, but not really on purpose, but it's cool nonetheless. sure that there's no hot glue here, because otherwise it's going to mess up with the height, and then the height won't align with the height of the body. If you wanted to cut them out, or if you wanted to remove them, just grab a knife and then, you know, you can pop them out like that, because I left, you know, space in there for that operation. But anyway, now you're pretty much done with the head. I would suggest you leave the magnets, you leave the glue for the magnets solidify for like at least 30 minutes just to be safe. But yeah, now that everything is done, what you want to do is just want to run one last check. So plug this thing in, make sure everything is working, and it is. And also make sure the trackball is working. Now, depending on what body you have chosen, if you have chosen this simple body, you are pretty much done. You can just connect this one here. So yeah, you just want to put it in, and you see the USB part here. Make sure that is sticking out. Like so. Then you'll see that there is a space for a shim here. So take your printed shim and carefully slide it in. Like so. And now this whole thing is secure. So then what you want to do is you want to carefully push all of this stuff in. So yeah, this will be in this sort of orientation. And there we go. So now, once you have slid it on, and obviously if the body had the magnets would, you know, keep it in place. But anyway, it looks like this. So if I were just to bring the laptop, plug it in to the back right here, and it will keep, you know, the USB connection in place. And then there you go. Now you can test it out. So this is the simplest body you can use. Is going to be this lower one, right? So this is the slightly lower one. So if I take some of the spare parts here, you can actually see how much lower it is. And then this one, you just, you know, you will have to take the wires apart, or you take off the microcontroller and then route the wires through here and then put the microcontroller in. Then after you do that, you can secure the wires like this, and then that'll be your small version here as well. So you can see on this version as well, since this is a more up-to-date one, you can also remove the magnets with the knife like that. So yeah, I'll be covering the more interesting bodies later on. But yeah, and then you can also put your what you call it, your rubber feet there as well. So yeah, compared to different materials, I chose the lighter one. So this is translucent PLA, and I printed this at 100% so that there's no kind of infill pattern visible. It's just like a solid object, and as you can see, it lights up. I think it'll be even cooler when I printed the base as the same material. The base should light up as well, or you should see like the color of the mandible shining through the base. So yeah, that will be pretty cool. So yeah, that's how you assemble the head. That's sort of the most difficult part. You can actually just interchange the bodies to whatever you want. Since, you know, this thing is, you know, highly removable and whatever. So yeah. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll show you more tutorials later on for this thing.